Hi everyone, welcome to my next You Asked, I'm Answering video. I'm not usually out this late in the day, but I think it's going to be very pretty following this trail because the sun is setting and it's casting its rays through the leaves quite differently than usual. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I've got some great questions this week. I absolutely love doing this every Friday. And as long as you keep asking me questions, I will keep doing this video every Friday. I so enjoy this. So here we go. I'm going to turn this around and show you where we are. And I have Maggie on a leash. And Sheppy is already up ahead. No, actually, he's right there. I didn't see him. Now I'm going to start with a question that I included in my book, There Is a Something. And it is a experience that I will never forget, and an experience that really has no explanation. The question was, how did I find my ex-boyfriend, the one that I ultimately married? Because I hadn't seen him or talked to him in over 17 years. So how did we meet? How did we meet up again? And I'm going to keep this short because I have a lot of questions, and I'm trying to keep this under 20 minutes. Maggie, I was very unfulfilled in my first marriage, and New Year's Eve, can't remember the year, I think I was 39. New Year's Eve, Lake Tahoe, heavy snowstorm. I was miserable. And I believe we weren't even really celebrating. And I said to my husband at the time, I'm going to go for a walk by myself out in the snow. And as usual, he just nodded his head and said, go ahead, I don't care. Thinking maybe he'd come with me, but he didn't want to. So here I am. And it was one of those, if you've ever been in a snowstorm where the snowflakes are really big and there's no wind and they're just kind of gently falling all around you. And we lived on a very quiet road up there. It was a ski cabin, actually, vacation home. And the road had not been plowed, and it was just this soft, fluffy snow. And I was just shuffling along in the snow. And I started thinking about my ex-boyfriend, and I thought, I wonder if he's still married. I wonder if he even thinks of me anymore. It's been 17 years. I wonder if he's happy. Now, maybe those are common thoughts we have over past relationships. But I really wanted to know. Now, there was a full moon, and it was directly above me. And I stopped, and I looked up at that full moon. Now, I've always had a sense of this greater something, and that's why I called my book There Is a Something. And I stood there with tears pouring down my face, and I looked up at that moon, and I said, Dear moon, could you grant me one wish? Could you let me talk to my ex-boyfriend again? I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's still married. I don't know if he still thinks about me. But I would really like to know. And when I turned to walk back to our cabin, our ski cabin, I had the uncanny, very, very distinct feeling that I had been heard. Now, you could call it God, you could call it the universe, I don't know. But I just had this very, very strong feeling that something was going to happen, and all I needed to do was wait. Well, 2 weeks later, we had returned to our regular home in California. And life was back to routine. And for some reason, I was alone in the house. I don't recall why. And I was washing dishes at the kitchen sink, and the phone rang. So I grabbed a towel, washed my hands, picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end just said one word: Barbara. And I almost fell over. In fact, I remember leaning against the counter still because I was in shock. It was my ex-boyfriend. Now, what he said didn't even surprise me because I'd always had this uncanny feeling of things, and I'd had a way of forecasting things that always happened. And he told me that 2 weeks prior, he'd been at work and had the strangest, overwhelming desire to start looking for me. He didn't know where I lived. He didn't know if I was married. And he wanted to know if I still had feelings for him. So apparently he'd contacted my father, who had given him my phone number. I knew at that moment that my prayer had been answered. Well, here's the thing about prayers. Be careful what you wish for. Because yes, my prayer did come true, but my relationship did not work out. However, I believe to this day that my prayer was answered so I could learn the lessons that I still needed to learn from being with this man. And I needed to put it behind me so that I could move on with my life and no longer think about him ever again. So that's a beautiful story, and it took me longer to tell it than I wanted. But it goes along with another question. And this person, I'm sorry, I just tipped the video. And I need to find Sheppy because he might have gone on either trail. Now, this question kind of ties in to kind of the supernatural realm, because this question was, where do I think we were before, and I'm assuming what they mean is before we were born. And all I know, or all I believe, is that we existed before in what I'm calling the realm of possibilities. Sheppy! And that I believe that all possibilities exist, but it's our freedom of choice. Isn't that beautiful? It's our freedom of choice to follow whatever possibility we're trying to achieve and manifest it. And I not only believe in existing in possibilities before we are physically here in this third dimension, but that of course there's other dimensions, and of course there are realms of possibilities after our physical existence. So very much so. And I try to understand more about quantum physics, but some of it just goes way beyond me to the point where it's kind of discouraging because I wish I was smarter to understand it. But I do like to watch occasional videos taught by these brilliant people about how time and space are like woven fabrics, which I believe Einstein talked about, and how everything is constantly in motion and interacts with each other. And I believe that's how we interact with not only each other, but the universe. Now, the next question is almost in the same kind of realm, and that is, do I think reincarnation exists? And if you've ever, or if you've read my book, There Is a Something, my very first chapter addresses that, because I've always had a very, very strong sense of experiencing certain places, certain locations as another person. And I had these experiences when I was very little, 3, 4, 5 years old, without any knowledge of the word reincarnation or life before life or any of that. I had no idea, but I knew that I had been someone else, and I knew who that someone else was. So if you're curious, I explain it very well in my book, and I believe the very same things today that I believed when I was 5 years old. And I've had many experiences that prove that. And there are people who have never experienced these things, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because some of us are more sensitive to energy, but I believe that there's so much more that we will ever understand, at least in my lifetime. These trees are beautiful. These are cedar trees, and apparently they grow near the ocean. Sheppy is just loving it here. I guess we're not walking fast enough for him. Come on, Sheps. Come on, Max. Oh, someone else asked me a really cool question, and I love it. Would I do a video, kind of like an interview with Sheppy and Maggie, and talk about where I found them, how I adopted them, little things about their personality, what they like to eat? I love that question, and I had not even thought about that. So yes, I will do a video with both of them if I can get them to sit long enough with me. Oh, this is kind of scary. And I will talk about where I adopted them both at different times, and their personalities and how they blossomed, and how they're really a team together. And they really do depend on each other more than I even realize. Now here's another question, and I get asked this a lot. Since I live out here in the woods, and I go on all of these hikes throughout the year, even in the winter, how do I deal with all the bugs, the ticks, the fleas on the dogs, ants, wildlife, bears, raccoons, mice, foxes, coyotes? Well, I have to tell you, I have never had a problem with any of those. I've had an occasional mouse sneak inside in the winter, and Maggie has taken care of them very nicely. And other than that, they have flea treatment every month, and I always check them and myself whenever we get home. Now, it's my understanding that fleas primarily are in tall grass, and as you can see here, there is no tall grass. So maybe that's one reason why we don't have a problem with them. And since I don't let Maggie loose, except for a few specific parks where I know she won't run away, Sheppy's really the only one that runs through the woods. Even at home, I let him run loose a lot, because he loves to guard the cabin and sit by the driveway, especially on warm summer nights. But I rarely see him with ticks either. So I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if it's because we don't have that many up in this area, this far north, or if it's because of that flea treatment. And it's just the regular store-bought stuff. It's nothing special. And so I think those were all the questions. And I thought I would be spending more time answering all of them. But I love all of your questions, and I welcome them all. And there's a really cool rock up here that I want to show you all. Come on, Max. Because it's very unique, and I often wonder if it was representing something. And of course now I can't find it. But apparently the Native Americans lived here years and years ago. And I often find mounds of rocks, large rocks, obviously put in a pile on purpose. And I wonder if there's some kind of markers, like maybe a grave of some sort. I'm not sure. Sheppy, come on. Oh, here it is. The rock's up here. Good. But I would really like to know if any of you think this rock looks peculiar. Because I think it does. Now, as you can see, I'm a little winded. Here comes Sheppy. There really are no boulders in sight anywhere. But here we are. Come on, Max. As we come up to this one. And I just think this is in the strangest spot all by itself. And I also think it has the strangest different sections to it. And maybe I'm making too much out of it, but it just seems like it was put here on purpose. Now, if I'm being silly, then I'm letting my imagination run wild. But how could one rock be all by itself out here in the woods with no other rocks around? And it almost looks like it has a seam to it going that way. And as if there was a piece underneath that fell off and a seam that goes around this way, as if one rock either fell onto another or it was placed there on purpose. Or am I just imagining something ridiculous? But the seam extends around to this way. And so it really does look like something set the top part onto the bottom part. Because it goes all the way around. So isn't that kind of strange? I've been thinking about this rock every time I walk by it, and I'm really curious if anybody thinks there's anything to it, or I'm just got an overactive imagination. But I love thinking about the past and who lived here before, and this might have been a marker for something. It might have been deliberately placed, or it may have been just here from the Ice Age. Who knows? But there are no other rocks around. So how the heck did it get here? So we're going to walk back. And please feel free to ask me more questions. I so love doing this every Friday. And I also very much enjoy sharing my personal stories. And I hope that they have value for all of you. I have many, many more. And if you can learn from my mistakes, then my mistakes were well worth it. I've got a bunch more. I can talk about romances that went wrong because of me, and why I was attracted to the wrong men that maybe weren't so wrong. Like the wild biker who I fell in love with the minute I saw him. Why do we fall in love at first sight? What is it that causes us to love someone? I think there's a whole lot more to love than we'll ever understand. And I think love is a whole lot more than just an emotion. I think it can be a very deep spiritual connection. And I also think that it can last forever. So with that, thank you for watching my video, and please feel free to comment, ask me anything you'd like. And I hope you're all having a really great day. Take care, everyone.